Call the Plan Commission meeting to order. Everybody have a chance to take a look at the minutes?
I make a motion to approve.
Got a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on concept development plans for 708 offices, 708 Second Street, Freeze Properties LLC.
There's a last minute addition to your packet. It's a one sheet that shows an aerial or a site plan view that was modified based on several of the recommendations in the engineering report, which is attached to your issue sheet.
Where's the, I'm sorry, where's the aerial?
It's this one.
It's the very last.
The very last page, it should,
Oh,
that one, yep,
okay.
right there.
Thank you.
So many of the items were addressed as part of that. The applicant is here, as well as the architect, so I think with that, I'll turn it over to them to present the concept, and then we'll have some discussion.
I'm Dennis Kroll, and I live in Hudson. And Roger Humphreys is our civil engineer. He's with Stantec. You know the location. We started out ideally having some parking in front on this courtyard. The site goes up almost 15 feet from the sidewalk in the front from Second Street to the back, and to access it from Second Street, we have a lower courtyard and access to the building, underground parking through that street access. It's two layers of office, two levels of office on top, two levels of office plus a meeting room on the third level, but all of that on top of the parking. Thank you. There's room for eight cars to park underneath, and we have run into some ordinance differences. We ended up taking out the parking from the front and just using that as a courtyard or a lower access courtyard, and keeping the parking in the front, in the back rather, on the east side. That gives us 18 parking spaces. And there's some difference in interpretation on how much parking is required. Mike and I have talked about that till we can't talk about it anymore. I think that probably the larger interpretation, or the interpretation that he wants to go with is that there's 11 spaces required. And we have 13. There is office space proposing for somewhere between 30 and 45 people. This would be an expansion to the offices that Sorrento has right now. Let's see. On the first level, there's meeting rooms, and there's a research and development kitchen and a gathering space, as well as office modules. And the second floor is very similar, except it has some outside, more private offices, or exterior wall private offices. On the third level, the roof level, we have a a meeting space and an outside deck that will be used for small meetings and gatherings, that kind of thing. Let's see. We'll use this deck to collect water for some of the rainfall water for to water some of the plants on the site, some of the water on the site. And on the very top of that, by the way, there's talk about using solar panels to mitigate some of the electrical energy usage. The proposed building is about 35 feet high at its 36 feet high in the back at the highest point for the elevator tower. And it's about 32 feet plus another 15 feet, I think it is, from, it's 32 feet plus almost 15 feet on the front. So what that, if you take the average between the front and the back, it's, it can be something like, the difference is 7.5 feet. So it could be 50, yeah, 52, it could be 52. We're proposing to have some green vertical gardens on the south that will give the walls a different kind of character, of course. We haven't a planting plan yet, but that's coming. Let's see. After getting some feedback on some of the parking issues, yesterday we decided to revise this plan to keep 5 spaces on the east, to line up the access from 2nd Street with the underground parking entry, and to get rid of the parking up here. You can't park within 5 feet of a residential and 10 feet of the right-of-way, and the right-of-way we assume is probably it goes right up to the property line. That's right? Yep. Okay. So we talked to the state, and they're amenable to the whole idea of allowing access with some conditions. The conditions being, let's see, either taking some of the access away from the dental office, which is probably not going to happen, or it's to right in or right in, right out. And to control that they're asking us to put in a port chart that conforms to their standards. Are there any questions?
Is something like that in writing? I mean, when the state talks to you like that, or Mike, do we have record of that if the state is requesting you to do it a certain way?
Right.
You're telling us now, I don't know if we've heard that before, so I guess making sure that something like that carries through is the reason of my question.
Sure. No, it's in writing.
Okay.
In Mike's.
It's in that engineering report attached to your issue sheet.
Okay.
There's the actual copy of the email that we received from Chris Michaels, who's the access coordinator.
Thank you.
So it would be an only right out then, right? Correct? I mean, only right out,
Right.
Right in.
right in,
Right.
right out.
I actually like what you're doing in front there, get rid of the parking, because you gotta get the car off the street. you know, you can't have him backed up trying to get into that property. And so you need a staging area off the street. If this guy can't get in the building, kids are walking by, something's going on, get off the street.
Right.
So I personally like that.
Well, also, this whole right lane of 35 or 7th Street right here there is no parking on it up to the next, to the property line to the north right now. And it's pretty well vacant, so there's no stacking, or concerns about stacking.
Dennis, what was your concern with whose concern was it on the back with those 4 parking spots? Is it because of the lot line on the south, on the far back?
It's not the lot line to the south. I don't
It's
think.
built right to the property line, correct?
Yeah,
Right.
I think many of the items that we were addressing with this revision came from the responses that we received from the city engineer and consultant. And so Dennis and I went back and forth on several ideas of what we thought could best work on achieving these. And I think Dennis also has had several conversations with Mike so that we're trying to be all on the same page. And I think the concern, I think, was on the parking was that it needs to be 10 feet from the building, and we weren't quite there, and we were having parking up in the front, and so what we literally did is just move the building 5 feet closer. We still have 20 feet before the sidewalk or property line, and then then some, so there is.
Well, I'm
that
looking to
staging
the
area.
south where you have a car. Just back in, yep, right there,
Right here.
yep.
This is part of, so
Well, it's Hans's property, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, the setback there is,
Oh,
it's commercial property right now.
yep,
And it's owned by them also.
Okay.
yep.
So just a question in terms of, I mean, it's great to have, 30, 40 additional employees working downtown. So with the 13 parking spots, what are the other thoughts on kind of where some of those other folks might be directed to park? I mean, because, there is still kind of residential a little bit in that area too.
Good question. That's the problem with downtown. in general.
Dennis, could you grab the mic too, just so we can have it?
That's the problem with downtown in general.
Right,
B3 and B4 are,
right.
of course, set up to allow that kind of density.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a blessing and a curse.
I mean, there's some options. It's just if folks are willing to walk a little bit, if they can be directed to some of those other lots that are available, to
Right across the street.
right across the street, or, they can have a lovely walk down from the beach house, lot too. So, I mean, the good news is the additional employees in downtown, I think it's just how to direct them for some other options, creative thinking on where they can park.
We have a bicycle parking area in the garage, and I think there'll be some more of that on the outside in the front. One of the reasons that this has come about is because they have so many employees that do like to work downtown, or to
Right.
be downtown rather than Woodbury, to walk to the river with a lunch
Right.
bag, or to walk down
Right.
to,
The restaurants and, absolutely.
sure.
Would it be helpful, I think maybe a question for Hans is, are some of the employees that would be housed in this location or working out of this location be shifted, reallocated from some of the additional the other spaces that you occupy?
Yeah, I'm Hans Fries, resident of Hudson. That's exactly what I want to share, is that we are not looking into adding 35 to 40 employees, to our operation. Most of these people that are going to come to this building is going to move from our current building. So that's going to be a shift of, we have 20 people now working in that building, so 20 people will shift to this new building. That's the plan. And as Dennis stated, I've been struggling, as a president of the company to, with how to accommodate the people. I've proposed about 3 years ago. I saw a building in River Falls, for sale, still for sale there, and I told them, well, I think we're gonna have to move out, and they came to me and said, but we love to work downtown Hudson, we love to walk downtown, to go to the restaurants and go to the river. So there's a quality of life that attract the employees to this company.
Right.
I think it's just it's a little more complex than just telling people, well, the company is moving to another location because we can't. So it's been a struggle to keep the company in that location and to accommodate, and that's why we bought the building across the alley, and we converted that residential house, to an office, and that's the next plan. So.
Great.
So we're trying to to accommodate, of course, the concerns of the city of Hudson,
Right.
and our employees, and try to find
Balance.
somewhere a place where we all can cohabitate and contribute to development of the city. I think the city also has been enjoying our presence because of we support. All the restaurants that are building. I mean, every year we have 2 more restaurants, so so they need to be, they need people, clients, So I think every day about 25 people they walk downtown to have their lunches. So
Yeah, we're very glad to have you here in Hudson.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. May I ask one last question on the state is gonna redo Highway 35 in
21.
okay?
Not soon enough.
Well, I don't know that, but that's not what my question's directed at. With the potential for, I've heard things stated that at one point in time, Second Street will become one-way, First Street will go the other one-way because of the amount of traffic they'll wanna handle. Other issues that could come up like that with this development in mind do we know, and are we okay with what we don't know is coming, maybe from the state and some other things?
Yeah, we don't know in terms of what that detour looks like, where it'll be, the duration of that, how they'll phase it, In that memo or in that email from them, it was, obviously the first scenario isn't one that makes any sense, but the second one is talking about, what they proposed here, so a right in, right out only driveway.
Right.
They feel that the signs alone wouldn't be enough, so you have to have a hard barrier, which is what that pork chop is in the middle of that access. They also said they'd like to see some parking restricted with this option, so what that means, or what I gathered from Mr. Michaels, was we have a no parking zone to approximately where that car is located. I'm guessing they're gonna wanna see us push that like another car length forward for visibility reasons. And then finally, the only other thing is that, they said both options, they need to be supported by the city for them to concur with the allowance of the new access. So, they know about it. I think, the implications in terms of whatever happens with the street reconstruct. There's still so much that we don't know, like you said. So, I don't really think it has any, adverse impact to that project.
But I was just trying to anticipate something in advance, just in case.
Point of clarification on his question in regards to the rumors of one-ways and/or if he is talking, in fact, about the detour route.
I was talking permanent one-ways
No,
to handle volumes of traffic.
believe that's been.
no, that's not something that we have ever discussed.
In other words, the downtown traffic is so slow that the only way that the volume can be handled, it's been said, they might change First Street to one-way and Second Street to one-way. It's rumors and ideas that have been floating around. Nothing's ever come of it, but is that day coming?
If they ever do that, you know, they'll put in lights down on First Street, which will just slow that whole thing down too.
Yes.
Right now, it just flows slowly right on through, and it works like a charm. People slow it down, walkers,
Right.
crosswalkers, and, you know.
If it was this way, it'd merely come in as a left in, left out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, again, and all I can speak for is whatever I've heard, and in my conversations with the DOT, that's never been presented as an option to me.
Sounds everything's okay then. That's kind of what I was hoping to hear, so.
Wasn't there a conversation about it while it's being built, while it's being redone?
For
about
detouring, yeah, that's what I heard.
detours Up
Yep.
Vine. They may or may not, when they're doing that section, may or may not be able to get in during that construction period.
That would have to be coordinated at the time of, yep.
That's gonna happen with, you know, wherever
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
constructing a street like Vine last year.
Mhm.
It's just a nightmare for some people. I suppose it will be at some point. Any information on when the infrastructure underneath that street will be redone?
In 2021.
At the same
that time.
Logically, I suppose.
Yep. The city realizes that it has some pretty significant improvements that it'll have to undertake. I mean, that's really old infrastructure underneath Second Street, obviously, so.
Limestone.
So, you know, I think, you know, just a couple additional points of clarity that are different from the original packet to the new sheet, is that access was shifted approximately, 15 feet, 10 feet to the south. Our zoning code allows, or it provides that access can't be granted closer than 25 feet from a property zoned R1, so they were forced to shift that down. In doing so, that also, and with them moving the building forward, that basically flip-flopped where the driveway is, or the garage door, which I think, you know, from my perspective, from staff's perspective, makes sense, because when you're coming in, you drive straight in instead of making kind of a more awkward diagonal movement. So, just so when you're looking at the facade of the building, you have to just keep in mind that, you know, it's effectively a mirror image of itself in the front. But the concept itself does remain. And then specific to height, it's the same, it's the same as the NR 118. This project is not within the Riverway District, but it's measured as where a building is located on sloping terrain, the height shall be measured from the average ground level of the grade at the building wall. So same definition.
So Mike, have all the bullet points from the packet been answered or addressed at some form or another?
So that would be my recommendation based on, you know, before I had a chance to review Dennis's most recent submittal, I held off on a recommendation. I think we're at a point now where I'm comfortable recommending approval of the concept, understanding that there's still, you know, there's still quite a bit of work to be done. I want to say recommend approval with understanding that the applicant satisfactorily address all of the items in these memos.
The 38 items.
Yeah, and they've addressed a number of them, yep, already. And some of them are, you know, recommendations, some of them are requirements. But I think, you know, the feedback that we were hoping for, I think the applicant was hoping for tonight, would help guide that decision as they move forward, as they continue kind of taking this concept and moving it towards their final development plans.
There's still plenty of work for us to do in the design of this, but going through the punch items and the list and that, we don't see anything that's really difficult.
Can you grab that?
Except the items that we addressed just recently, you know, those were important enough to get through. But, you know, this is a very similar project to we did 4 or 5 years ago, maybe, I don't know, at 701 First Street. Very, very similar in nature on almost all aspects, stormwater, those type of aspects, and there's specific requirements in the letters that spell out what we need to do. And looking over those, I don't see any issue that we can't, you know, we calculate through our designs and we meet and we go through that process.
In fact, those are mostly detail kind of issues.
Correct.
I'll move we recommend the concept development plans for 708 office on Second Street, Frise Properties LLC.
And I will second it
With-
with the stipulations, all the ones to be resolved, be resolved.
Correct.
We thank you for trying to make this work and working with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A little bit more discussion.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
The only thing that I would add would that, you know, with the B4, they have to get a conditional use permit too. So, that'll be forthcoming, at the
Do we have to mention that?
24th.
Do we have to mention?
It's required by zoning. it's not necessarily required in your recommendation.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Thank you. Discussion possible action on recommending the common council set a public hearing date for zoning map amendment from R1 one-family residential to B2 general business at 690 Darnold Drive, Hudson GNC, or GNG LLC.
This property was annexed a few years back and did not, it comes in, when property is annexed in the city of Hudson, it comes in as R1 zoning generally. It was just never rezoned, and that was discovered at the point where Hudson Gymnastics purchased the property or the specific lot. And obviously they would need rezoning before they'd be able to construct a facility there. It's consistent with our comp plan. All this does is recommends that the common council set a hearing date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion possible action on recommending the common council set a public hearing date for zoning map amendment R1 one-family residential to B2 general business at 674 Darnold Drive, 685 Darnold Drive in St. Croix, tax parcel 236-20338-00-040, Outlot 2, SSHD Inc.
Same vicinity, just basically completes all of the rezoning for the whole property.
Move to approve.
Got a motion and second to approve. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on recommending the common council set a public hearing date for a zoning map amendment from PUB public to R2, two-family residential, and comprehensive plan amendment from public to single and two-family residential at 815 Fifth Street, City of Hudson.
With the Hudson Utility Department moving to their new location on 11th Street, they are looking to sell this property, and obviously it's zoned publicly. They're requesting rezoning to match all of the surrounding property, which is already R2.
Is that costing us environmental impact study on the land itself for any contaminants?
Don't know yet.
But
You know, and I think that will have to be disclosed, you know, to make that property marketable at some point, but, you know, that's a question for Kip.
yeah.
But again, just setting a public hearing date for it.
Move to approve. Second.
Got a motion second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion possible action on recommending the common council set a public hearing date for a comprehensive plan amendment to include the Hudson Waterfront Vision Study.
Obviously, the SEH presented, 2-3 weeks ago to the common council, the waterfront vision study. There were some comments that still need to be cleaned up after a discussion with DNR and some other regulating bodies. I think it's important from a planning perspective, if we're gonna do these plans, that we incorporate them into our master plan. This is again to set a public hearing date to incorporate that plan into it, into the comp plan. I'm asking that we set this a little bit later, just so we have a little extra time to make sure that we address any remaining changes that have to be incorporated.
Is it possible for us to see that plan, or?
Yeah.
Is it online, or?
Yep, not yet. We wanted the final changes to be,
Okay.
and then what we'll do, is we'll email it to you, what we have.
Do we also have to update the comprehensive plan here in the very short
In
future?
Gotta be done by
2019.
2019.
Yeah.
You know, so my recommendation would be more of a cursory review in 19, understanding that the census occurs in 20.
Okay.
It's good to have all of that information after a census, so
When do we get the results of that usually?
it's
doesn't
usually
come in.
2 years after,
Yeah.
but I think the first thing, you know, we'll do the cursory review and update of the comp plan required by state statute, and then, my recommendation will be to move into an update on the zoning code.
Okay.
So moved.
And I'll second.
Motion and second to approve. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on amendment to municipal code, chapter 202, signs, section 202-7, for the purpose of garage yard sale signage and other temporary signage.
Another late addition to your packet, but I did put in some draft language specific to real estate signs. I'd ask that you review, it has not gone to legal yet, but, you know, the big points here are, if we want to entertain allowing for directional signage in the right-of-way for the purposes of open houses, model homes, things like that. It establishes effectively a review process, hours of which something like that would be allowed if approved. Some liability language, as well as just some general placement parameters and size, and not having any projections or balloons or streamers, things like that on it. We can move that into, that type of arrangement into the garage sale piece too. We can move it into, we already have a process for temporary signage, but not in the right of way. So if there's something that we want to do for temporary signage other than open houses or real estate signs, we can also migrate that language into that section. It's a simple thing to do, but think about it, and if you have any concerns, you know, I can run it through, I'll run it through legal.
I like what I see so far as real estate, you know, and that's my main focus, not necessarily garage sales. So you need no formal action on this?
No, I just, you know, like I said, just if you have any questions or comments, let me know. Kathy and I will review it further, and then we'll bring you the actual formal ordinance. I would ask that if you want to have garage sale signs or temporary signs for events, you know, some of those, like a business, if we want to entertain that, let me know, because that's an easy enough thing for me to incorporate in there.
You know, one of the things, and I don't know that I've mentioned this with this group, I know that Mike and I have talked a little bit about it, but the sign ordinance first came to my attention years ago with Domino's that used to put out the Father's Day, yeah, the customer appreciation thing. And we went out Friday and picked them up on Sunday, if there were any left. And there were people, obviously, the city people that were picking them up, and that's the first time that had ever come to my attention. Is that something that we should be considering?
I think that would be in the temporary, on-premises special event signs would be where that would be covered.
He was putting them all over town.
Okay. Then it's temporary off-premises special event signs,
Okay.
but that'd be for commercial
Yeah,
Isn't the whole intent of this just to get people to clean up after themselves?
I would think so.
You know, if we can accomplish that, I mean, and maintain some semblance of reasonableness, why not?
Okay.
Yeah, and I think what, at least the language that's in there now addresses some of the staff concerns that I had. If we're gonna be going out and, or monitoring permits, applications, reviewing them, what does that look like? It puts some of the onus back on the applicant to make sure that if you wanna do something, you gotta give, plenty of notice, and then we can deal with it at that time, so.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
I would like to have that 11th Street Bridge put back on the radar at some point, widening of that. I know I've brought it up a few times before you. The traffic is getting worse. Obviously, we'll keep growing.
Is that something that we just dance to the music of the state, or how does that work?
Yes and no.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
It's all who pays, and the DOT obviously.
Yeah, and it's a cost discussion too.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's
That's the next future major bottleneck we have.
I've had some preliminary discussions with it wasn't their, it was one of their engineers. And he referred me to the bridge engineer, which I haven't talked to yet, but, expansion is potentially an opportunity there. The way I understand it, again, it's gonna come down to cost and timing, and, we'll keep moving that discussion forward.
Does that go on the back burner for the state because it becomes more of a city issue of us keeping our flow where it doesn't affect them per se?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it, honestly, and that's
What I thought.
That's a big part of Carmichael, too. I mean, most large interchanges are state highways, that cross over or interchange with interstate. So, we're one of the very, probably one of the busiest, but one of the very few that have an arrangement where we've got a massive interchange on a city street.
It
And
just
arterial.
continues to be an issue, and it's something we have to address. Even when I get emails about biking and crossing and everything, it's really coming to safety as well. And if we need to move on at safety, calling it a safety issue, so be it. But, and I know we have projects coming up and some big ticket items that we have to get through, but I think this one is something that we need to take a better look at.
And I think it'll help the businesses over there.
Yeah.
It'll help the movement of traffic, it's understanding that the old slip ramp probably isn't ever coming back.
Yeah.
Well, I think it could ultimately
Yes, it
alleviate some of Carmichael's problems. People used 11th because it was more free flowing.
Yeah.
And take some traffic off of Carmichael.
Yep, and we've got some exit 1 work happening this summer, and if people are bypassing and trying to, how much extra is that gonna add to 11th?
How far are they gonna come this year? Was that just the interchange? At one?
Correct, yep,
Okay.
yep, there's some bridge work, that's starting soon.
Mhm.
Front Street will be closed mid-April. Overnight, I think at least 2 nights as they replace some deck panels.
Have those residents been notified?
Yep, they've been mailed a letter. We're gonna have a neighborhood meeting with those folks, and then we're coordinating with Brandon
I'd like to be there.
and Fire, okay.
Along with the 11th Street thing, is there been any talk of Hanley becoming the next cross thoroughfare through the city there too? In other words, people taking that street to, right now it's the path of least resistance and best flow. And as we get more crowded, more people are gonna take that. So, are we anticipating that and looking at that, or am I out in left field here in my comment?
Doing what with Hanley?
I don't know. What do you do with it to be able to handle adequate traffic?
Widen it.
Well, that's the easy.
We're just narrowing it now.
Oh, okay.
At
Well,
least one end of it.
I'm just thinking if we're talking about the bridge, it's right there, hello, so. That's it.
Yeah.
And the Carmichael Road Corridor Study is gonna inform a lot of those discussions too. which is gonna be done
You
here.
know, it's the same thing they always throw at us, well, why don't you put a bridge across from Industrial to 17th?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, come, okay, what's cheaper, widening 11th or putting a whole new bridge in?
Yeah.
Either way, we have to acquire property.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, apples to oranges, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say that discussion might be more beneficial if we're talking about exit 2 relief with a overpass
Yeah.
than 11th Street.
But
Bridge
I don't wanna
expansion.
muddy the water, I just want us to focus on
Sure.
11th Street, so it just needs help.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, anything else?
Do you have a next meeting date, did we? schedule
Yeah, we
that?
established, is it April
Yep, April
10th?
To April 10th, right?
Yep.
Thank you.
And then the 24th?
Mhm.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Sorry,
I move to adjourn.
I heard that, I got it. Motion second, I'm just trying to delay the meeting.
Yeah, you
Oh.
wanna stay here longer, yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you had something else to say.
No, I'm done. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.